Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Matt, and I do like video games, and in today's video, I wanted to make a quick video. I mean, it is New Year's Eve. I don't want to spend all day editing, but I do want to get something out, and I do want it to be something, relatively thoughtful. And I figured, okay, what better thing to do for the new year than make a relatively condensed video of my favorite games from 2023 as we head into 2024. So with that being said, that's exactly what we're going to be doing in today's video, so let's get into it. And before we get started with the actual list, I do want to give a few shout outs to a couple of games that I'm sure would probably be in my top games of the year had I beat them. And I haven't beat them yet, I'm still working on that. First up on that list is Remnant 2. Remnant 2, definitely one of the most fun games I've played this year, especially when you're playing it co-op with buddies. And it's a pretty big step up from the little bit I've played of Remnant 1. Remnant 1 was alright, but Remnant 2 is legitimately really, really good. And I really do enjoy it. I just haven't beat it yet. I kind of find it hard to put it in my top games of the year when I haven't even really rolled credits on it. Also, shout out to Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm sure, as many of you know, is probably a lot of people's game of the year in general. And I can see why that would be the case after playing it. But I've only played a pretty small amount of it. The writing is phenomenal. The characters are phenomenal. Really, really well acted characters. And then also the turn-based combat, which I don't like turn-based combat in games. I really don't like turn-based games. So it was kind of going out on a limb to buy this game. I was kind of taking a chance, knowing there's a good possibility that I won't like it. I took the chance. I started playing it. Once I got used to the turn-based combat, that's probably one of the stronger parts of the game for me personally. It's really, really good. So shout out to Baldur's Gate 3. No doubt one of the best games of the year. Also, shout out to Hogwarts Legacy. I know a lot of people really enjoy that game. One of the reasons I haven't beat it, the main reason I haven't beat it, is because I had the game spoiled for me. And not going to go into details on that, but people were spoiling the game because, J.K. Rowling is a bitch, and she said some bitch shit about certain things, and people obviously didn't like that, and rightfully so. But unfortunately, one of the ways that people dealt with not liking that is spoiling the game for people, which I don't really agree with, but whatever, it was spoiled for me, and that's one of the reasons I didn't really finish it, because I kind of lost any interest because I had it spoiled. But I can say what little I've played of it, or the amount I've played of it, which is about 30 to 40% of it, I believe, it's really, really good. The developers really, really cared about this. It's really impressive. It's their first big AAA game. If I'm not mistaken, they were making things like cars and mobile games, and then suddenly they got handed the Harry Potter IP, and they crushed it. They just absolutely crushed it. So shout out to Portkey Games for making this game and having it be as good and well received as it was, even amongst all of the controversy surrounding it. And then finally, shout out to The Finals. Now, this is a game, I remember hearing about this game, seeing this game a few times throughout the year, maybe even late last year is when they first showed it. And I thought, wow, I really, really want to try that game. I thought maybe it was like a Battle Royale kind of thing, and I really don't love Battle Royale. But the thing that caught my eye was how destructible the environments in the game were. And I was like, okay, even if this is a Battle Royale, I want to try it. I just want to see it. I want to see the spectacle of that game. I tried it. It's not a Battle Royale. Turns out it's a really, really fun game. I'm quite addicted to it right now. Me and my buddy Mike are playing almost every night on that thing. It's phenomenal, and I've really been enjoying it. So shout out to The Finals. The only reason I wouldn't put that in my top games of the year, like definitively, is because it doesn't have a definitive ending. There's no definitive ending to The Finals. It's like an ever-going game. It doesn't stop. It's a live service, right? So it's kind of hard to put it in there. Just like it would be kind of hard to put in Halo Infinite. It's an ongoing game. It's a live service. It's amazing, but it's never going to end, or at least not anytime soon, right? So it's kind of hard to put it in that category with these games that I'm going to be talking about today. But it is, regardless, a phenomenal game, and I highly recommend you try it out if you're into multiplayer games. And now let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of this video. I'm going to go with a top 5 list of my games from this year. I'm going to start at 5, work my way down to 1, and that will be the big finale, right? So number 5 on this list, I'm going with RoboCop Rogue City. This game absolutely kicked ass. And it's weird because I remember seeing the game over the summer, I believe, is when they first started showing the game. And I was thinking to myself, I don't think that game's going to be that good. Like, I remember having that thought. And I talked to my buddy Ham, and we both kind of thought, wow, I don't really have high hopes for that game. And I'll tell you what, it came out, it was getting pretty great reviews. And when I say great reviews, I don't mean like critical acclaim from like IGN or Kotaku or GameSpot or whatever outlet you want to talk about. I'm talking about when it came out on Steam, it was getting very positive reviews. I think at one point it was overwhelmingly positive. I could be wrong about that, but regardless, it was very positive reviews. I know that much, and it still is very positive reviews. And all these people were saying how much fun they were having with the game. RoboCop is entirely meant to be fun. It's meant to be a fun game that makes you feel like a badass from start to finish. And while doing that, they also managed to sprinkle in a surprisingly good story. Like a shockingly good story. A much better story than I would have ever thought I would get in a RoboCop video game. And it was kind of like an RPG too, because you could pick and choose your dialogue when talking to people. It was a really, really well done game. And I highly recommend checking it out. And I believe it's on sale for the holidays, whether you're on Xbox, PC, PS5, whatever you're on. I do believe the game is currently on sale as I post this video. So definitely go check it out if you haven't already. And then number 4 on my list of top 5 games for this year, I gotta put Hi-Fi Rush on this list somewhere. I feel like it's on a lot of people's Game of the Year lists. Not only because it's just an amazing game, it's just a really fun, awesome, well-written, really cool characters and everything. It's got a really cool concept, a melee-based rhythm game is really cool. There's not a ton of those. Those do exist, but there's not a ton. Like, there's all those factors, and then on top of that, it shadow drops out of nowhere. On Xbox's first developer direct, they come out of nowhere, shadow drop one of the best games of the year, one of the most highly rated games of the year, and it's absolutely phenomenal. We had no idea they were working on it. Tango Gameworks was in the trenches on Ghostwire Tokyo on PS5, and then in the process of bringing it to Xbox as well. And then somewhere in between all that, they managed to be working on this game long enough and keep it under wraps and then shadow drop it on the day of the developer direct. It was a huge talking point in gaming for about 2 months after its release, which is really, really good staying power for a game that is, you know, I wouldn't say is small, but it's not this big grandiose game. It's not like a big 50-hour game. It's maybe 10 hours, maybe 10, 12 hours. And it was a huge talking point for Xbox for about 2 months after its release. And even still today, people are still talking about it. You still see fan art for the game. People still really, really love this game. And it's definitely in my top 5 games of the year for this year. So shout out to Tango Gameworks. I can't wait to see what happens next in the world of Hi-Fi Rush. And up next, it's kind of hard to talk about games that I love this year without mentioning Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is a weird one though, because I really don't play it anymore. I really don't play Diablo 4 anymore. But one thing I do know is that when Diablo 4 launched, and even before it launched with the beta and everything, I was hooked. I was hooked for like the beta was, as long as the beta was up, I was playing Diablo 4. When Diablo 4 came out, for like a month and a half, I did nothing but play Diablo 4. There's not many games in my life that I can say a month and a half after release, I was doing nothing but playing that game, really. Any free time I had was devoted to that game entirely. There's not many games that have done that to me in the past, so it's definitely worth mentioning on this list. And guys, you know about Diablo 4. I'm sure most people, not all people, but a good portion of people watching this video have probably dabbled in some Diablo 4 at one point or another. It is phenomenal. The gameplay in that game is so incredibly addicting, and the gameplay is so simple too. It's literally just kill, loot, kill, loot, kill, loot, kill, loot, kill, loot. That's the gameplay loop, but it's so addicting that it's definitely worth the number 3 spot on my list. It's also worth that spot because I never cared about games like that up until I played the beta for Diablo 4. Like those top-down, asymmetric kind of games, I never got into those. And then Diablo 4's beta came along, I played it, and then all I wanted to do was play Diablo. I went out and I bought Diablo 2 Remastered, I went out and I got Diablo 3, and I played the hell out of them, right? Because of Diablo 4. So it got me into a genre that I don't think I maybe never would have gotten into had I not played Diablo 4. So that's another reason it is on this list. So once again, shout out to Diablo 4, my number 3 game of the year for this year. Right, now we're into the top 2. And the top 2 is where it gets really interesting because number 2 for me is Starfield. And if you guys know anything about me, Starfield, I've been hyped for it since, God, it feels like forever, right? Since 2018 when they announced it. In fact, since before they even announced it, because I'm pretty sure it was rumored not long after Fallout 4 launched in 2015. So we've known about this game existing for a very long time at this point, and people have been excited for it for a very long time at this point, and it finally released this year, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Complete time sink for me. Again, just like Diablo, except probably a little bit longer than Diablo, about a month and a half, 2 months, maybe 2.5 months of nothing but Starfield. After this game launched, I couldn't stop playing it. I beat it. I made another character. I beat it again. I went to New Game Plus. I beat it again. Easily the best story Bethesda's ever done. And I don't think that's particularly close. Like, this story is not only the best Bethesda story ever, I think it's probably one of the best RPG stories ever. At least Western RPGs. The type of RPGs I typically stick to. This is one of the best stories in those RPGs that I've ever played. There's a few missions in this game where I'm just like, okay, that was probably the coolest mission I've ever played. And I get it, you know, they've made mistakes along the way. It's not a perfect game by any means. I don't think people give it the credit it deserves in that regard. It's a really well-told story. Whether you like the exploration or not, the story is phenomenal. The gameplay is phenomenal. The combat's phenomenal. The spaceship combat is phenomenal. It's all really, really, really well done. And hats off to Bethesda. For me, I can't speak for anybody else. I know this game disappointed a lot of people. I understand that. But shout out to Bethesda for living up to the expectations for me personally. Because I had really high expectations for this game, and it exceeded all of them. It was a really, really great game. I'm very thankful to Bethesda for putting as much time as they did into this game and as much love as they did into this game, because if you're willing to give it the time, it really does show. And then finally, we're here at number 1 on my list of top 5 games for this year, and I gotta give it to Alan Wake 2. And that is not something I expected to be saying at the beginning of this year. At the beginning of this year, I hadn't even played Alan Wake 1. And then, you know, the year kind of went on. They started showing a little bit more of Alan Wake 2. And I was like, okay, this looks pretty interesting. Looks like it could be good. Nothing crazy, though, right? And then I decided, you know what? Let me pick up Alan Wake Remastered. It was constantly on sale for super cheap. I'm like, okay, I'll pick it up. I'll give it a shot and see if it's for me. I played it. Phenomenal game. I really, really enjoyed it, right? And then Alan Wake 2 comes out. And guys, it takes everything Alan Wake 1 does and does it at least 10 times better. I know it's the whole joke that this game is, you know, just a walking sim, blah, 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 whatever. And there is a good amount of walking from point A to point B where, you know, you might not see combat for like 45 minutes or an hour. That probably will happen to you a few times in this game. But when you do get to the combat's really, really good. I think it's probably one of the most underrated parts of this game, and I get why, because it's not a huge focus in the game, but it's really well done when it's there. And then also the atmosphere of this game. Whether you're playing as Alan Wake or whether you're playing as Saga Anderson, they nailed the atmosphere for both of those characters. Any environment that you're in, you can almost kind of feel that environment. I'll say this. Playing that game, I'm not really huge into horror games. I didn't start getting into horror games until I played Dead Space, and that was late last year. That is the scariest game I've ever played. And I don't mean that in like a negative way. I don't mean that in like, oh, it's too scary, I can't play this. I just mean in terms of when that game wants you to feel on edge, when that game wants you to feel tense, when it wants you to feel scared, you will feel scared. And there's not many games that do it as well as that game does it. In fact, I haven't played a game that does it as well as that game does it. So shout out to them for that. And then on top of that, you got things like the visuals. I know graphics don't matter in terms of like how much fun or enjoyment you get out of a game, but it is important to the presentation, right? And that is one of the best looking games I've played this generation. That game looks phenomenal. Like truly. Like, and I played it on Xbox. They had a quality mode, and then they also had a performance mode. I played it on the performance mode. Performance mode looked absolutely beautiful. And then you also have things in that game like, you know, the characters, obviously. Like, Remedy is really good with their characters, and this game is no different. But I think the one thing that took it over the top for me, that made it my game of the year, because there was one specific moment that did that. And I remember I was in a party with my buddy Hard Days Mike, and in fact, I think I was streaming it. He was watching me play Alan Wake 2. And I remember me and him sitting there talking, and then this part starts. And if you know what I'm talking about, you already know. The musical part. And I feel like a lot of people know what that is now because of the Game Awards. There was a whole big musical part for Alan Wake 2. It was from the game. Like, that song was in the game as a big musical moment. And I remember that part of the game starting, and my initial reaction was, okay, this is cheesy. I hope this doesn't go on for long, right? And then like 10 minutes later, it's still going on, and I'm thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever played in a video game, maybe, right? I went from thinking, okay, I hope this doesn't go on for much longer, to thinking, this is fucking awesome. I don't want it to stop. It was in that mission that game went from, this is really, really good, to this is one of the best games I've played this generation. Hands down. And it's the game of the year for me. They absolutely nailed it. Hats off to Remedy. I can't wait to see what they do next. I mean, that game cements them as one of my favorite studios in the industry. I can't wait to see what they do next. I'm excited for the Max Payne remakes. I'm excited for Control 2. I'm excited for anything we get from Remedy from here on out. But that is my list of top 5 games that I've played this year. But I do want to know, in the comments, leave it down below, what are your top 5 games you played this year? Hell, if you want to do a top 10, what are your top 10 games you played this year? Leave that down in the comments. What do you think of my list? Leave a like if you like the video. And if you're enjoying this kind of content and you want to stay up to date with it going forward over here on the channel, the best way to do that is consider subscribing. Consider ringing that notification bell, because that helps you stay up to date with everything that happens over here on the channel. And it helps promote me in the algorithm, helps push the videos out to way more people. And I always appreciate that. And with that being said, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.